Chef Jen, and welcome to my home again. We are excited to be doing this sake dinner.
Yep.
How many dinners have we done? Eight,
This
nine?
is 8.
8. Okay,
Yeah.
It's 8 dinners. We got Chef Gabe, we got Matthew in house today, and then we're gonna have a satellite person today talking about sake. So that's gonna look a little different, but still a lot of really cool information. If this is your first time joining us, a few little housekeeping items. We coordinate everything for each dish by color-coded dots. So we definitely recommend that you get everything together by those dot colors. We would love for you to temper most all the ingredients, except for like the lettuce or the fish. Keep that in your fridge. But then also, before we get going on the dinner today, turn your oven on. I like to have my home oven on 425, 450. I have a convection oven, I have the air on. And then the ribs, the blue dot that has ribs, and it's in a foil pouch. And that foil pouch has a little sake in it and these fantastic smoked ribs that Chef Gabe made. We're gonna put that in the oven now. That way it'll be ready when you want. Now also, if you haven't done the dinner before, if you wanna just watch this video once and then come back and do it a second time and time it however you like, or you could make one dish and stop the video. Those are all kind of really fun things to do so you have a good time. All right, so sake. I know nothing about sake except for I like to drink it. What's... Oh yeah, we gotta put the oil on too. Thanks, Chef Gabe. So at home, if you guys have some canola oil or plain oil, I have about 2 cups in here. We're gonna be frying quail later, like a chicken fried quail. So we're gonna put about 1 inch of oil in a pan. And I'm gonna put this on low heat for now, so when I want it, it gets warm. Thank you, Gabe. All right.
I think what's probably the most important thing to understand about sake is that there's a really big difference between craft sake and table sake. Craft sake didn't really emerge in Japan until the 1980s, 1990s. So it's relatively new. And every year since then, the ratio of craft sake produced in Japan has increased. But still to this day, probably 70% of sake made in Japan is table sake that's not premium. And so most of what people encounter as their first experience drinking sake is something that's not premium. And because there's almost no regulation, there can be added sugar, up to 50% added alcohol. And so when people are like, oh my God, sake gives me a hangover, it's usually because they've been drinking table sake. And premium sake is really highly regulated. Everything that you're having tonight is premium sake that is pure rice sake. So there's no additives. The rice is very highly polished to a very specific level. And the reason that you polish rice for sake is that sake rice looks a little different from the rice that you eat. When you look at a grain of sake rice, you can see a pure white core in the rice and a grayish yellow outside. And that grayish yellow is proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals that can create off flavors in the sake and also just interfere with the purity of the sake. So when you are tasting tonight, I would really encourage you to taste sake like a wine. Stick your nose in the glass, give it a spin, see how it evolves once you've taken a sip. I always like to tell people to take a sip and exhale slowly towards the front of your mouth. You'll get a lot of different sensations, and give it some time in the glass. I think that throughout the beginning, middle, and end of enjoying a pairing, the sake will change a lot. And it's a little more nuanced than pairing wine with food. Wine pairings with food, you're thinking a lot about acid and about tannins. Sake doesn't have any tartaric acid, which is great. It's not going to give you heartburn. It's not going to erode your teeth enamel. And the acids produced in sake are much more amino acids that give you these great savory, rich, complex flavors, but they're not going to be tart acids like a Sauvignon Blanc is going to give you. So when you're thinking about the harmony of the sake and the food, it's a little more about the sake kind of giving the food a hug is how I like to think about it. And that's how I would recommend trying the pairings. I always like to recommend that you make a sake sandwich and take a little sip of sake, eat the food and have more sake, because it really is about the intermingling of those flavors. And, I think this is such a thoughtful menu tonight, and I'm really excited about some of the notes in the dishes and how they're going to be reinforced in the sakes. But a couple things just to think about as you're tasting and looking at the menu. So these are all going to be junmai sakes. So junmai means pure rice sake, highly polished. So you're going to have a level of purity and expression and elegance that you wouldn't get from table sake. they're all from different regions throughout Japan. So sake is not quite as terroir driven as wine is, but sake is 80% water. You add water at every stage of production. And for that reason, I always think that drinking sake is basically like drinking water. It's pretty good for you. But the water is always going to be local. So the minerality and the texture in the sake is going to be a direct expression of that water source. So I would kind of think about that as you're tasting the sakes.
We're going to start off with Seaside Sparkling. So it's a sparkling sake, which is super fun.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had a sparkling sake.
Yeah, lots of really cool notes of lemon. We got, I think when we tasted, we had like lemon heads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like lots of lemon zest, lots of zippy fruit, and obviously it's sparkling, so it makes it super fun and really easy to pair with food.
Well, when we tasted, Chef Gabe and I, we got that lemon, and we just immediately thought of lemongrass.
Mm-hmm.
So what Chef Gabe and I have done, you'll find you have some cucumber in here that's been compressed with a lemongrass syrup. And we're going to make this kind of the base of the plate and really striking. We thought this would be a really kind of striking, pretty look to put this down on the base of the plate. And then we have some beautiful kampachi, and I like to make sure we season that kampachi, so I'll take a little bit of Maldon salt, and I'll just put a few crystals of that Maldon salt right on the kampachi, and then we'll line this fish up right here. Beautiful. And so this is going to be a nice, simple, easy plate up. Then we have some apple. So I also felt like when we tasted it, and Matthew, you can tell me what you think, I felt like we got some apple characteristics as well. And
Yeah,
so we compress the apple in the lemongrass as well. And what we're going to do is I'll take the circle of apple and I'll make a slit right to the center, and I'll kind of close that. And at work, we call these Shrek ears. You remember how Shrek had the ears? You know? So we call these Shrek ears. But it stands up pretty on your plate to have a nice garnish. Yeah. And so we'll just put some apples on the plate. And then one of our next components is a furikake aioli, which I must have over here. There we go. I just didn't have it with me. And furikake is a Japanese rice condiment. This one has a little wasabi flavor in it. And I like to put a nice little dollop on each. I need a smaller spoon. I have much too big a spoon here. Excuse me. My spoon drawer here. All right. Sorry, guys. Okay. I'm putting a nice dollop of that furikake aioli on the fish, so you have a perfect bite right here. All right. And then we have a couple other components that I thought would go good with this. Thai lime leaves are a really delicious thing, and we made an oil out of the Thai lime leaves. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this oil and drizzle it on the fish and on here. So you can see where it's going, citrus and apple and clean flavors with this dish. And then I like a little texture, so we have these really fun little radish ribbons that are just silly and playful. And I would just toss those on there. Micro basil, we're going to toss on here. I think the basil with the lemongrass is really bright and beautiful. I always love to put edible flowers on anything because I just love flowers at all times. I don't even need a reason to like flowers at all times. Okay. And then here's some more of that furikake. And again, the ingredients in the furikake: nori, seaweed, there's bonito in here. And it has a really nice flavor. So I just think this is a really festive, fun presentation. And voila. And this is the sake that it goes with. And then we'll just have to try it together and see what we think.
Yep.
All right. And if you haven't been around before, that's Chester. He's one of my dogs, and he's saying hello. Okay. But let me take a sip of this. It's so nice. And I love, the creaminess of that. I think, when I practiced this dish for the first time, Matthew, I didn't have the furikake aioli on it. I just had those other ingredients. And it needed that kind of depth that the furikake gave because, there's that yeasty creaminess to it, right?
Right. Yep.
So, and I think that's super important. So let's see what I think here. I like to get a perfect bite.
And this is pretty much a Japanese inspired sort of dish. But I love that we're pairing the rest of everything with very much Rioja food. You know?
Yes. And you know, Rioja does usually do a raw fish dish, and I love raw fish. So, that is so nice. And I think the apple really plays well with that sake.
So I'm really excited that we're starting tonight with bubbles. There's not a lot of sparkling sake made in Japan, and most of it is either made by carbonating sake or secondary fermentation in the bottle. This is the only sparkling sake that's actually made as a petnat or pétillant naturel, if you're a natural wine drinker, where it's still fermenting and then bottled. And so with no oxygen access, the still fermenting sake will develop its own bubbles. So you'll notice in the glass that the bubble is very soft and creamy and really, really gentle. This is made by one of the only female master brewers in Japan. She is the master brewer as well as the 5th generation owner of her brewery, which is very rare. Japan's amazing at a lot of things. Gender equality in the workplace is not one of them. So you don't really see women working in general, and owning their own business in an agricultural field is unheard of. So she's a total boss. And she's really proud of her region. So if you look at the map of Japan, you'll see that this brewery is located on the coastline of Hiroshima. It's on the coast of the Seto Inner Island Sea. And this sea, the coastline is dotted with lemon trees. They're so famous for lemons here. And if you go to the train station or the airport, every tourist like gift will be lemon scented or lemon flavored. And she really wanted the sake is called Seaside, and she really wanted people to drink it and feel transported to this amazing coastline. And for that reason, she uses a type of koji. You'll see koji production on your production flowchart, but most sake uses yellow koji that gives you a lot of glucose and a lot of amino acids, but none of that really bright, refreshing acidity. This sake is made using white koji, which produces a lot of citric acid. So even on the nose, that citric acid comes out. I think you'll get that lemon on the nose. And for me, it just really makes me feel like I'm at the ocean. And I love that this crudo, I mean, there's so many. Hachi is actually a fish that is very well known coming from the Seto Inner Island Sea. So there's so much harmony already in this dish, but seeing the lemon verbena that's used in this crudo, I think that's just going to dovetail really nicely with that lemon on the nose and just the creamy, soft finish. I feel like you're going to drink this one very quickly.
All right, so Matthew, let's do the next course. And what's our next sake with the next course?
We're going to do Amanoto Heaven's Door.
Okay.
And this is a junmai.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I thought, something about this sake I loved, and I know we're going to taste it again, but we're doing this with a risotto. And this risotto is going to be made with almond milk.
Yes.
Because I really felt like the almond was really important.
Absolutely.
But there's also like this dairy richness to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what. I hope this goes fantastic. But we're going to start the risotto first. So we have some par-cooked risotto for you guys. This is a beautiful organic carnaroli rice. And that carnaroli rice is a specific varietal of rice that I think has a really nice flavor texture. Almond milk, the unsweetened Khalifa almond milk, I think is going to be a good choice, and we have that in here. And we're going to just really stir that really well, so we're getting the starches really getting shiny off the rice. Interesting, how we're getting the starch off the rice and the sake making. I don't know, I didn't think about that till just now. And you can go ahead and put the almonds in now too. These almonds are toasted to perfection, but they'll only just continue to add more flavor into your risotto. And then I like to put a tiny pinch of salt right now, so the salt cooks into the liquid as it's cooking. I'm gonna get this guy cooking on pretty high. All right, and then Gabe is helping me check the oil. We have the oil right 325 to 350, and we're slowing that down so it doesn't get hotter than that temperature, but 325, 350 should be good. And then the other thing you have that we got to put in the risotto right now is this oveja cheese, and this is a Portuguese sheep's milk cheese. Let me just get rid of these for the shot. Thank you, Gabe. So this is a Portuguese raw sheep's milk cheese, and I'm just going to chop it randomly. And when the risotto's almost done, we're going to whip this in to make it creamy. As opposed to butter and other cheeses, sometimes This will be the thing. And then the other two components we have are a radicchio. The radicchio we have marinated in balsamic, a little olive oil, a pinch of sugar, salt, pepper, and we've grilled it. And that'll really soak in there. And then a few parsley leaves. And this is also going to be important on that dish too. So let me get a bowl for serving. And then let's taste that. Should we taste the wine?
Sure.
And I know Monica will be talking about this.
Monica will be talking
She'll
about
be talking about
this
this more. But what do we think? Oh, it's so intricate. It's so
there's the
complex.
almond we were thinking of the first time we tasted it. Yeah.
Yeah, like the almond comes out so much, and it just so intricate and complex. All right.
So for the risotto course, we are going up to Akita Prefecture. Akita is almost the tip of the mainland of Japan, and a very poetic way of referring to this region is the door to heaven. So it's not a rock and roll reference, but it's just an old Amanoto, the name of this brewery, does translate to the door to heaven. And this is a pretty unique brewery. In the world of wine, when you visit a winery, you kind of assume that it's going to be surrounded by vineyards. And when you talk to the winemaker probably knows a lot about the farming, does the farming himself or herself. With sake breweries, that's almost unheard of. Most sake breweries contract farmers from hundreds of kilometers away. And because the process of certifying rice for sake brewing is so rigorous, the brewers kind of just trust the government to make sure that they're going to get good rice. This is the first true grower producer in Japan that we're tasting sake from. So these guys started out as rice farmers, and they specifically grew sake rice, and they were so passionate about it that it led them to wanting to brew their own sake. So from seed to bottle, it's the same people taking care of it, and all of their rice paddies are visible from the front door of their brewery. So they're really into sustainability and just the ethos of being a grower producer, which I think expresses itself really well in the sake because it's all about rice to me. There's a steamed rice, really gentle softness in the mid palate. You get that steamed rice on the nose. There's a ricey minerality on the palate that I think is just really gives a nice grip on the finish. It also makes your mouth water. There's a nice salinity that comes from that rice minerality. Some other aromatics that I get on the sake is definitely almond. So I'm so excited that this is such a nutty dish with the almonds and the almond milk, because I almost get a marzipan note on the nose of the sake, like marzipan, white flowers, white chocolate. It's really pretty. It's not super fruity. If we were looking for fruit, maybe baked banana, but it's so floral and so delicate. I just love this sake, and sake and cheese is one of my favorite ways to showcase sake, because sake and cheese both have a lot of umami that comes from lactic acid, and they both have such a broad range of texture. And I think that texturally, pairing with the Ovea cheese, this could be really fun. And I think it'll surprise you how a sake that's delicate can stand up to a pretty pungent cheese.
All right, so I think we're in a nice spot. You can see how this is nice. It's getting thick. It's not all the way there yet. So that's when you want to put the cheese in, and that's when we want to continue. And I kind of like smush the cheese with my spoon too a little bit to break it up. I've taken the rind off of it. It has a thistle rind. It's not edible, but we've taken that rind off of it. So I think it's great. Like, you really can smell the funkiness of that cheese.
Smells really good.
Yeah, but I think the funkiness, is going to go great with this Heaven's Door. So I'm really excited to have Matthew try this together. And we'll just whip that really creamy. That looks great. So you really don't want to see like the rice kernels separate from that creamy sauce you've made. You want to see it all look like one unit. If you ever like see rice kernels sitting above, that means you didn't stir it enough. It means you just really didn't work that starch enough. And sometimes, I know at work, and Gabe just did it too, I'll actually do that double action thing where you move the pot and you move your hands. And you're just creating a little bit more action in the pan. And that's it. So as Gabe's almost ready with that, I'm going to taste this, because always make sure you taste everything for salt and pepper. Oh my God, it's so good. Very little pepper, a little pinch of salt. I think it'll be great. I think a little bit of pepper, okay? Oh, perfect. Now, risotto should fall on the plate. You shouldn't be able to mound risotto. An Italian would kill you if they saw a mound of risotto. But it's true, you want it to kind of fall on the plate. It almost goes flat when you're in Italy. I know a lot of times in America we really have this kind of dry, starchy pile of rice, and I don't love it. So And oh, that looks so good. I think we're just right there. I think that's gonna be perfect. All right. So I'm just gonna serve this. Very simple. So I've tempered my radicchio so nothing's cold. And I'm gonna put the risotto in the bowl, just right in the center of the bowl, and it's falling really beautifully in there. And then what I'm gonna do is just put some of this radicchio and parsley around. And so the richness of the risotto, the radicchio is really going to play against that richness to relieve your palate. Sorry, I'm struggling with some words today. But a lot of times you make something rich and it'll be too much, you know. So, oh, that is really pretty. I like how that looks.
That's beautiful.
We'll get into this fork. Okay, so I already have my spoon actually.
There you go.
All right, so let's see if this goes well. What do you think, Matthew?
Well, definitely want to get the perfect bite here.
Oh my gosh, it's great together. I'm very excited about this. I'm gonna give some of this to Chef Gabe here in a second. But what do you think?
It's delicious.
All right, Matthew. So our next dish is gonna be chicken fried quail.
Yes.
Now, this may sound kind of like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? But fried chicken, I know this is not fried chicken, I think goes great with sake. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Okay, I know it's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, but we're crazy. So first thing that I'd like you to do is put our potatoes, no Chester. We have some fingerling potatoes in here, and there's tricolor, local Colorado fingerling potatoes. And I have a slit down the middle, but I want you to kind of open that up, baked potato style a little bit. And then we're gonna pop those in your oven just to get warm. They've already been fully cooked. And aren't those colors pretty with purple, rose, and gold? All right, pop those in until they get cooked. Then we have our quail. Now the quail we have brined. And remind me, what do we put in the brine, Gabe?
We actually just used our cardamom brine.
Oh, okay.
So, there's some cardamom pods, some ginger, just obviously a saline solution.
Okay. And we air dried this, and then we've done like a buttermilk and flour dredge. And I'm giving you guys a little extra flour because packing this up this way, it might get a little sticky, and that way you can sprinkle that little bit of flour on the quail, and then we'll go right into pan frying it. And we'll pull this in the front, or I'm sorry, maybe over here, so we can see this in our picture a little bit better. And we're gonna do, instead of like a full deep fry, which you can do, we're just gonna kind of do a pan fry. I'm gonna put it on its breast side first. And you see how the bubbles are coming right away? Again, we know that oil is nice and hot. We're gonna get some nice color in it, and we're gonna flip it over. That quail will actually cook very fast. It'll be fully cooked no matter what you do if you brown it and get it crunchy. It'll be probably cooked a little bit more than I would prefer. It would be great if I could get a medium rare for me, but it'll end up being a little bit more well for chicken fried quail. Now, we have sea beans. Now, sea beans are so interesting. They grow along the cliffs around the ocean, and they look just like beans, but and taste one before you make it, you know, it's quite saline from the ocean. Now, it doesn't taste like seafood, but it tastes a little salty like this. Yeah, so I want to make sure we don't over salt things. So with these sea beans, I thought that salty ocean quality, something about that with this next sake. In fact, which sake are we doing next?
Next is the Bride of the Fox, and it's a Junmai Ginjo.
Okay.
So the next sake pairing for your chicken fried quail is the Kambara Bride of the Fox. This is a Junmai Ginjo from Niigata Prefecture. So Ginjo is even more high level than Junmai. We're getting slightly more premium here. And Niigata so Japan's divided into 47 prefectures. It looks kind of like the United States of America when you look at your map of Japan. And there are about 1,100 sake breweries in Japan, depending on who you talk to. And 90 of them are in Niigata Prefecture. So this prefecture has more sake breweries than anywhere else in Japan, and more sake drinkers per capita than anywhere else in Japan. So it's a great place to make sake. They grow the most sake rice in Japan. They have really, really pristine water. We talked about water being such an important factor in sake making. Very high mountain ranges here, lots of great skiing, and that snow melts off the mountain and trickles down to these wells within the brewery. And so that whole passageway for the water is like a natural filtration system, where by the time that water reaches the well, it is so pristine. And so I think you really get that that purity on the sake. I find that this is a great Pinot Noir drinker's sake, like an Oregon Pinot Noir drinker's sake, because it has that great balance of earthiness and like a little barnyardy earthiness, but it's just really great fruit as well. And there's really like fleshy about the fruit in the sake. I find that I think the root beer is such a brilliant pairing. I didn't even think of root beer as a tasting note, but now that I think about it, it makes so much sense. I always get like persimmon and mulberry and cocoa and a definite maritime quality, like this like ocean breeze kind of characteristic. And I find there's an herbaceous quality, like a little anise, that I think will also go really, really well with the sassafras and the root beer on the palate. And foxes are the gods of rice. Japanese people are incredibly superstitious. And the reason that Niigata is this land of sake is that I guess over 100 years ago, these elderly people were seeing foxes running around in the night in Niigata. And in America, this would never get any attention. But in Japan, the older you are, the wiser you are. There's no statute of limitations. And foxes are very auspicious creatures. So the government decided to pull up all their crops and just start planting rice. And now they plant more rice than anywhere else. And every year they have this festival called the Bride of the Fox. That's this where the whole town dresses up like foxes and throws this party, and you can audition to be the bride of the fox. So if you're getting married that year, you have the opportunity to get a free wedding paid for by the Niigata government if you're into having a wedding full of people dressed like foxes. But it's this really important part of sake history that is right where this brewery is located.
Perfect. So Bride of the Fox. I love all the names.
Yeah.
The names are kind of fun. Yeah. All right, so a few other ingredients we have here. We have a truffle-y dressing, which is a little aioli creme fraiche base with black truffle in there. And then we have a root beer gastrique. So we're kind of having fun with like down-home fried chicken, but also fancy with truffles and some sea beans and things like that. And
when we were tasting this wine, we got root beer.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, that.
Crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Okay, now you see Gabe turn this over, so that's great. Now we got some nice color on him, and he looks fantastic. Yeah. So that's gonna be ready pretty soon. I think the temperature's good. You want it up, or you like it?
I think you can go up a little.
For just a minute. Yeah. Okay, we'll go up for a second. All right. So once the potatoes are warm, we'll plate this. All right. So Gabe has fried this guy up. I'm touching him. He's nice and crunchy. I know the whole thing doesn't have dark brown. It doesn't need to look dark brown. You can just kind of touch it lightly and you'll see it's crunchy. Oh yeah, it looks good. So he has a little paper towel on the tray, and when he takes it out, while it's still wet with the oil, we're gonna sprinkle a little bit of salt on it. Perfect. And let's put it right here, the whole tray. Okay, so you guys can see that. A little bit of salt, he's kind of resting. And then in the oven, I have our potatoes, and our potatoes have gotten nice and warm. Beautiful. And now we're just gonna go put everything on the plate. So, all right, so here we go. We're gonna put one of each of these beautiful potatoes on the plate. And then we're gonna put a nice dollop of our creme fraiche and truffle mixture inside the potato. It'll melt right in there. And all this will really melt right in this dish. Now the sea beans you have tempered, so I would just put them on like this. We don't have to get them hot. If you want them hotter, we can do that. But I think the temperature will be nice. I think that little kind of temperature change will be fun. Yeah, a little kind of like
contrast.
Yeah, contrast. Yeah. Thank you. Matthew speaks Jennifer, so he he knows what I'm trying to say, and I stumble on my words. I appreciate that. All right, so we'll do that, and then this is where the pickled shallots come in. I thought a little bit of pickled shallot on this, and then I am going to top in a second with the creme fraiche, but I'm going to wait till we're ready to serve it all the way, because the creme fraiche really turns liquid on that. So the next thing I'll do is I'll put this quail. Actually, I will do this next. Put that on a nice big dollop. Feel free to use all this. You're going to want all this. Okay. There we go. There we go. Okay, that looks great. Now, the quail on here, and I'll turn this around for presentation, and then I'll just drizzle the root beer gastrique all over that bird on his little legs. Now, this quail, except for the wingtip, And that little bone at the bottom is boneless. So in case, I think that's important, I forgot to tell you, this quail is boneless. And so this is a super fun plate. I love this.
Yeah.
So
The smells are crazy.
So chicken fried quail with some fancy potato salad. I know we call it potato salad. That's a fancy potato salad. All right, so Matthew, let's do it. And so what I would do in case if you're intimidated by cutting the quail, I just mentioned, you can cut it right in half, and you'll see, the breast and leg comes right apart, And again, the only bone is on the very end of this, like a drumstick, and the wing. And so, I personally, I just pick the darn thing up, and go to town. Got root beer. That's so fun with it. It really does taste like, we thought we tasted root beer when we tasted this sake, which I know, of course, is silly. There's no root beer in the sake.
No.
But whatever characteristic.
But they're incredibly complex.
Yes.
So, yeah, the root beer.
So I think that goes fantastic, right? Doesn't that go great? Yeah. and then we'll just have a little fancy potato salad with it. Okay, so I think we're ready to do the entree course, which is dots of blue. Let's check our ribs in the oven. Okay, I'm gonna put that little foil pouch. Just open that up. Oh yeah, nice and hot. If you want to use a thermometer, I can see they're steaming. So I know those are gonna be ready to go. That looks fantastic. Okay, so we left the oil on, and I will actually probably switch this around a little bit. We left the oil on so we could fry the mushrooms. Chef Gabe was thinking we had this kind of cocoa-esque flavor going on in this next sake, but we didn't want anything sweet. Now cocoa powder isn't sweet, so we're going to do a little play on that, and Gabe has taken the ribs and rubbed them with a little bit of coffee, a little cocoa, a little chili, salt, of course.
Yeah, and cocoa nibs, which are also inherently not necessarily sweet, but they have that cocoa-y crunch and flavor to them. So
one of two things actually, we could change this pot into a little bit of a deeper pot if we like, still great, just to fry those two mushrooms. And so that oil's still hot, we just use that oil. I'm just gonna pour this in here. Now you don't have to, depends how deep your pan was, but for these mushrooms, I'd like to put this in this pot, and you see it's frying, perfect. And then it's submerged, it'll just fry a little bit easier. Put it in a little pot and it's submerged. So this is a trumpet mushroom, and we've taken these trumpet mushrooms and we put a little olive oil and thyme and lemon and cocoa powder. We sous vide it and we cook it like a confit almost. 25 minutes in simmering water. Yeah, and so we're just gonna fry those nice, and we have a little paper toweling, we're gonna put that on. And then for the ribs, we can put them right on the plate. Let me get us a plate. And I like to put a little extra of the sauce. So the sauce is a black garlic barbecue sauce. And black garlic is a nice fermented black garlic flavor, has a lot of umami type characteristics in it. And I want to put a nice big smear of this on the plate. We have put some on the ribs, but I like sauce. I'm a saucy person. I am very saucy gal. So I'll take this little palette knife and I'll rub that black garlic barbecue sauce on the plate. I will then take my ribs and let's do something a little bit bigger now. And I'll put a couple nice ribs on the plate. Oh, there you go. Thank you, Dave. The ribs right there. Ooh, nice and hot. And then I am going to top these with the extra cocoa nibs. And these cocoa nibs are kind of from the cocoa bean before it's been processed too much. So it's fun because you'll have that cocoa flavor, and it'll have a nice texture too. It gives a really kind of cool crunch. So I'll place these on there. And we're just watching the mushrooms. We're going to wait till they get golden. They're not golden yet, but they're getting close. So I'll kind of keep going.
They may not get too golden depending on how clean your oil is as well.
Right.
That affects the color of whatever you're frying.
Yes. When your oil is really clean and new, they don't get as brown, which is not a bad thing. You know, I have some more of those confit mushrooms. We're just gonna put one more on the plate, so it was fun to do one breaded and some not, was the idea. And then we have a little bit of our spicy greens, maybe some watercress and arugula, maybe some escarole, maybe some endives. We're gonna toss a little bit of extra virgin olive oil on there, a little bit of salt on here. And the greens are important because you have a lot of umami deep flavors here. And again, the greens are gonna relieve the palate. So I really do feel like, don't skip over the greens. They're there for a reason. They're very important. Yeah, so we'll put a little bit of that greens on the plate. Watch those little stems. And then, oh beautiful, those mushrooms are great. So Gabe's gonna put the mushrooms on a little paper toweling. And I'm just gonna sprinkle a teensy bit of salt on them. And yeah, right, and the thing with salt, when you deep fry something, when it's wet from the oil, when it comes out of the oil, that's the time to do it because it'll stick. If you let it dry, the salt just kind of comes right off of it. So those are nice and crunchy, Gabe. Like you said, they don't look dark brown, so don't wait till they look dark brown, right? And we'll put that on a plate. I'm gonna turn this around so we can see this. But then the last thing, it's kind of fun for dramatic, we have some cocoa powder in a little sachet here. And we're just gonna sprinkle cocoa powder. I know, very dramatic, huh? You like my flair?
I do.
Okay, well, me too. Okay, so the plate looks gorgeous. And again, we're gonna have to use something to pick up that rib.
I know.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because that's just gonna happen. But let's try this and see what we think about this next fantastic. And this is a mana.
Mana, yeah.
1751.
And it's Junmai.
So the next sake that's going with the coffee rubbed pork ribs. This is a sake that I always use in my arsenal for someone who thinks that sake is only meant to go with sushi or sake only goes with seafood, because I think when you taste this sake, it's really hard to imagine it with anything other than meat. It almost has this like smoked meat quality on the nose. And there's so much of a lactic note for me. There's buttermilk and buttered mushrooms and savory yogurt. It's so complex and it's so expansive on your palate. I mean, it's so rich that you really need something with umami and fat and richness to stand up to it. And, you know, the complexity of these coffee rubbed pork ribs with the cocoa notes and the black garlic, I think it's going to be fantastic. This brewery is established in 1751, which is why it's called Mana 1751. They are incredibly small in production. They make less than 4,000 cases a year. It's a father and son operation. They don't have any employees. And they're located in Fukui Prefecture. Fukui is known to have some of the best tasting drinking water in Japan. People always joke about how hedonistic it is that they're washing their cars with the country's best tasting water. But I think you'll really get that, the texture in this sake. And there's just so much. It has a really, really long finish and a lot of depth and complexity that I'm so excited to see how it stands up to these pork ribs.
I mean, these are pork ribs. In case I didn't say that, because it could be beef, but we did pork ribs. Oh my gosh. That is so good. And that little bit of chili. And there's a little smoke on there. Oh, wow. It really brings out a spicy quality to the sake that's different. So some of them might exactly match, and some bring out different flavors in the wine. And this one is like, goes great with it and brings out some different flavors from the chili powder and stuff. And I feel like that like enhances it.
Absolutely.
All right, so for our last but not least course, dessert. And which sake, I can't remember. What is with dessert?
So this is going to be Cloudy Dreams. So it's a nigori. So like an unfiltered sake.
Okay, unfiltered.
Yep.
So, okay, cool. So we get a lot of different things in there from the unfiltered. All right, so what I know when we tasted this, we had this marshmallow, peanut butter. You were saying something about an Elvis sandwich.
Well, I was just thinking like fluffernutter, you know? It's just like a banana peanut butter sandwich, you know?
So we
marshmallow.
So we weren't sure about the banana, but we did play on some of those things. So, okay, so this will be kind of fun, and this is a nice dessert maybe to learn how to plate fancy. So what we did is we have this really nice caramel sauce that's more of a toffee caramel sauce, and I'm going to drizzle it on one side of the plate, and then I'm going to, again, kind of smear it flat on the plate, and that's going to be our palette. And we're going to set everything on this palette. I'm going to put a little bit more because I love toffee caramel. Eric, our pastry chef, made all these amazing things, and he knows I love peanut butter. So this little quenelle is a peanut butter mousse. And so I don't disturb it, I'm going to take a little knife to set it on the plate. So I pick it up with a little palette knife, and I take a little palette knife to kind of slide it off on the plate. Okay, so kind of fun. And I just, if you don't want to disturb those, just kind of use a little baby spatula or a spoon. If you don't have a small spatula, a spoon is totally fine, and scrape it off with another guy. And then Eric has some other really fun ingredients. He's made some toffee that he's put a little chocolate on. And so I'm going to put this on the plate. I love toffee as well. And just a little chocolate on there because we thought that would go well. And then also the toasted marshmallow. So Eric has done some toasted marshmallow kind of pieces. He's dried the toasted marshmallow. I'm going to break that a little small. He's dried that toasted marshmallow so it'll have a nice variety of crunch and smoothness. And then here we have some little kisses like pavlova style. So meringue with a little cocoa powder on them right here. And then, so everything was kind of done two ways. So the marshmallow two ways, the peanut butter two ways, which is the candied peanuts that you see here. And then the toffees and the sauce and the toffee, and the chocolate, which is on top of the toffee. And we're also going to put a few more cocoa nibs. And I know we had it on the last course, but I think it's fine. We're going to put a few more cocoa nibs on here. And again, I think they're really important, the texture and the flavor of that. So we're kind of going on one side of the plate on purpose because we just think it's a little artistic. Left or right, you can pick a side. And then we have our unfiltered sake to go with this, and I'm hoping that this tastes fantastic. So let me taste this again. It's been a bit since I've had the Dreamy Clouds. How do you pronounce it? Rihaku? Rihaku. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yep.
Rihaku or sake.
So for your dessert, I'm really excited that the dessert's being paired with a drier style of sake because I personally find sweet pairings with desserts to be a little too much. And I think this is a really great opportunity to challenge sake and give it a chance to really rise to the occasion. This is a nigori sake. Nigori means cloudy. And so as you can see, it's, even though you can see through the glass, there is a cloudiness here. That cloudiness is all natural. It comes from dissolved rice solids during the fermentation period. And nigori used to have a bit of a stigma in Japan because it was the first sake ever made. And so Japanese brewers would say, we've made so much progress. Why are you going back to drinking stuff? And this producer, Rihaku, was the first producer to ever make serious nigori. So until this product entered the industry, nigori was like a milkshake. It was so thick that you could eat it with a spoon. And this producer thought, well, what if we just tried to make the best sake we could and allowed some of the sediment to escape into the liquid to add to the balance of the sake. And so it was such a different way of thinking about this style. And I think you'll notice that there's quite a bit of complexity. If you've had nigori sakes before, they can be a little one note, you know, a little banana, coconut, sweet rice, creamy, little cloying on the finish. This one is totally not matching with that flavor profile. I think it's quite nutty on the nose, which is why I'm so excited to see the peanut in this dish. I get dark plum. There's a tanginess on the finish, like almost a lemon zest that makes me want to pair the sake with anything that you would squeeze a lemon on. But I think just really brightening up the indulgent qualities of this pairing, this could be really, really great. This sake brewery is located in Shimane Prefecture. So Shimane is the second least populated out of all 47 prefectures in Japan, which makes it a boring place to visit, but a really great place to make sake because it's a great place for agriculture. There's no human population to get rid of anything. And the producer, this Rihaku, is actually named after a famous poet who was very famous for drinking lots of sake and writing a lot of poetry about sake. And so Dreamy Clouds in our mind is describes the look of the sake, but it's also kind of a state of mind and kind of the way that happy floaty feeling you have when you've had a lot of sake. So hopefully you're having a lot of sake at this point, and please enjoy.
Nigori sake. Oh yeah, the peanut. There's no way this isn't going to be so good with that, right? And the toffee. Let's just see. It's gonna be hard to get everything at once. Mmm. Okay, so fun.
Well, this would be fun to just play around with the different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This dessert alone is like a little adventure of I taste one thing, taste sake.
Dreamy clouds
taste one
on
thing.
a plane.
Mmm. And taste the sake. Mmm. I find that I really love it.
Yeah.
And I love that peanut butter with it too. And I haven't gotten the marshmallow yet, but the peanut butter was fantastic. Mmm. All right.
And little peanuts.
Mm-hmm.
Really good.
All right. Well, I think that was pretty fun. Well, hopefully at home you guys love this dinner as much as we did. I think we had a really great time doing this because it was very different than your normal like grape wine dinner.
Yeah.
And it expanded our palate and our kind of diversity. And it was really cool. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you can join us next month for rosé. We've already tasted the rosés. We tasted them last night. It's a great lineup.
Yeah.
So we hope to see you soon. Rioja Denver on the YouTube channel is where you find the video.
Yep.
And then, of course, always go to Explore Talk for tickets. But thank you so much. And please follow us at riojadenver.com. Thank you guys so much. Gabe, Matthew,
cooking.
Chester. Good night.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Ding.